Hi everybody and welcome to the channel. So today what I thought we'd do is head into the woodland and see what sort of UK species we can find, and I can help you to be able to identify. So let's dive in and go see what we can see today. So why do I think it's important that you can identify UK wildlife? One thing, if I was to ask you right now to describe a rhino to me, and you live in the UK, you could describe it to me. If I was to ask you to describe an elephant, you could describe it. If I was to ask you to describe a hare, how would you make sure that I knew it was a hare and not a rabbit? Could you describe a stoat to me, or a polecat? What about the difference between a muntjac deer and a fallow deer? One of the problems that we have in this country is we're so disconnected from our own wildlife. And I want people to appreciate what we have here in the UK. I want you to know what sort of species are around us, that you can enjoy them and appreciate them. If I was to ask you to tell me an endangered species, what would be the first thing that would come to your mind? Maybe the rhino again? Maybe a panda? But here in the UK, the hedgehog that we all love is endangered. Did you know that? So what can we do to help UK wildlife to thrive in the habitats that are constantly changing around us? How can we make a difference to our own country when we seem to spend quite a lot of our time and money supporting other animals in other countries? So my passion is for you to be able to identify UK wildlife and love it as much as I do. So let's get into the woods and see what we find. Okay, our first species. Let's look at this. When we're looking to identify plants and trees, plants more specifically, what we want to be able to do, you want to look at the leaf, the shape, see how many veins there are, you want to feel it, you want to look at the edges. How would you describe the edges? When we're looking at trees, we'd look at bark colour as well. So let's look at this one. So this has alternate leaves, so that means that the leaves alternate on the branch. So they're not opposite each other or right next to each other, they alternate. This leaf feels quite furry, almost, quite soft actually. The underside is quite pale. It has lots of deep veins. The edge is toothed, so you can see it's sort of quite sharp looking. And it has this long point. Now this is a hazel tree. This is obviously only a little baby hazel tree, but this is a hazel tree. So this would be what you would be looking out for. These leaves, it's a single leaf, alternate on the branch, a toothed edge, and it terminates in a long point there. It will go to seed, and you probably would recognise the seeds. I'll put up a picture now of what the seeds look like. But this is our first species, and it is a hazel tree. Here we have a species where there is one that is bad for you and one that would not do anything to you. So this is called hogweed. Now this is the common hogweed. You can see, so the way that we identify this one is the stem. You can see it's all sort of furry, so there's fur all the way down the stem. And the leaves are really big. So the leaf comes out from there and separates into these leaflets, which is deeply divided. So when we say deeply divided, what we mean is this big cutout here. So it has this divide in the leaf, so it's a deeply divided leaf. The edge is toothed, so you can see it's quite serrated looking, so it's like it has little teeth. It's toothed. The underside is also furry, and you can see there the fur on it. The leaf is big. Now this is only a baby plant. You can see it's not very tall. These will get much taller than this. It produces a flower head. Now this one is sort of just starting to, but it will produce a big umbrella of white small flowers. Hopefully we'll find one that's in flower I can show you. It's about the right time of year for them to be in flower now. Now this can be confused with giant hogweed. Now giant hogweed is the one that will make you sick. Giant hogweed is the one that if you get the hairs onto your skin, it removes your UV protection, and so brings you out in blisters and things. This one is just common hogweed. So that is what this is, common hogweed.
Editing Kelly here. So I thought, as this channel is dedicated to helping you identify plants, I would add a little bit in about the giant hogweed. So giant hogweed is well distributed across the whole of the UK, although it's usually found next to riverbanks, as the seeds for the giant hogweed are distributed via water predominantly. It's significantly larger than hogweed. Giant hogweed gets to about 15 feet or 5 meters tall, so that's 3 times my height. It's absolutely massive. The leaves are similar to common hogweed, but they're much more spiky looking, deeply divided, and the toothed edges are sharper in nature than the common hogweed. The other thing with the giant hogweed is that the stem has red blotches all the way up it, so you can see the hairs on the stem, and it has these deep red blotches that run the whole way up the stem of the plant, so you can identify this clearly from common hogweed. So it's the giant hogweed that will cause skin burns, especially in children. Children tend to grab hold of plants and play with them and pull them apart, so they tend to get blisters, big and sort of swellings across their hands. So giant hogweed is one to avoid, but common hogweed is absolutely fine.
We have a tree here in front of us. This one's actually quite tall. You can train this to be quite short, and people often use it for hedging. Now this, you can see the leaves, so it has this deep divide. So it's a deeply divided leaf. See the shape of it here? It's quite sort of, as it matures, it sort of tends to get quite spiky on the ends. It's quite sort of pointed, but again with those deep divides. It seems quite messy. The leaves are sort of everywhere on this sort of on this plant. So this is the common hawthorn. It does have some spikes on it, but they can honestly be quite actually hard to find. This one has potentially been brushed past. I can see underneath me that people have been cutting this away, so potentially the new growth of spines has all sort of come off. But this is a hawthorn. So, oh, there's a little spine I can just see, so I can show you. There it is. So it does produce flowers. It produces some lovely white flowers. This one is not in flower at the moment, and it produces some berries for the birds later on. So it's a lovely plant. It's quite big, like I say, but you can train it to be quite small and use it as hedging, and it feeds birds. But this is common hawthorn. This lovely big plant that we have here that's sort of winding around everything. This here, the leaves on this one are alternate, so are opposite. So earlier on we saw alternate where the leaves are not next to each other, whereas this is opposite. So the leaves are opposite each other, and usually in pairs when they're opposites. The leaves are lancelet in shape, and it feels quite waxy, and you can see where the rain's come down, it hasn't actually soaked into the leaf or anything, it actually sits on top. So the leaf feels quite waxy and quite thick, and the stem itself feels quite waxy. Now this is a climber, which means it puts out little tendrils to grab onto other things. And this is honeysuckle. You can see here where it's starting to get the buds which will produce flowers. So when this goes to flower, it will smell amazing. Honeysuckle smells absolutely beautiful. But it does need something to grow up. So this looks like it's growing attached to a hawthorn. So it's grown next to the hawthorn, and then it's reached out and grabbed hold of it. So the branches all sort of lift upwards because they're trying to grab hold of something. They want to reach something and then wrap around it. So you can see on here these slight furs, which is going to help it to grab hold of other branches. So this is honeysuckle, absolutely beautiful. You can get it in your garden, but it will need something to grow up, so just be aware. And it can grow really quite large, so you'll need to keep cutting it back if you do decide to have this as a horticultural plant in your garden. But honeysuckle. Here we have a baby tree, so it is quite tall, but this is a baby version of this tree. And I will reach up to get this branch. Joy of being 5'2". So the leaf is quite a distinctive sort of shape. It has these deep divides, but it's lobed, so it means the edges are rounded. So it has these big lobed edges all the way around. The stem, you can see, of the leaf is on the actual sort of branch itself. So there's very, very little sort of stem on there. The leaf is pretty much directly connected to the branch. Now this is an oak. Now this one in particular is an English oak. That stem being connected to the branch is the identifying feature. So an English oak, the leaf itself has a very short stem, but the acorns they produce have a long stem, and the acorn sort of stands quite proud of the leaves. Whereas if this was a sessile oak, the leaf itself would have a long stem and the acorns grow pretty much along the branch. So this one is English oak. And it's beautiful. What our country is known for. We have a small plant down here now. Now in certain conditions this will grow really quite tall. This one is not very tall. So we have these leaves. The leaves are quite furry to feel. You can see the stem has fur on it. My phone will focus, there we go. So you can see it's quite furry feeling. It has 2 leaves that wrap around the stem, and then there's one leaf that sort of comes out that has these 3 leaflets. Quite sort of toothed along the edge and lots of veins. Now for me this looks very similar to a strawberry leaf, but if we come up and look at it when it's in flower, it has a yellow flower, not the white flower you'd expect from a strawberry. The identifying feature of this flower as well is that these little green parts are sticking out between the yellow petals. So you see a yellow petal, and then you see the green part, and that goes all the way around. Now this particular plant is called wood avens, and it's actually an ancient woodland indicator. So if you were doing an ecological survey and you were at a site that said it could potentially be an ancient woodland, you would be looking out for species like this. So this is wood avens. It's quite dark here in this part of the woods, but I wanted to show you this. So you might already know what this is. Lots of people can identify this. This is holly. A great plant that we sort of associate with Christmas. So you can see it's got quite waxy sort of leaves, and it's quite spiky. The leaves are spiky. Now this is a new part of growth. So these are soft at the moment, but as we get down into the older growth you can see here these spikes that are really quite sharp. Now this again produces berries in the winter, which is great for birds. It gives birds something to eat, birds and mammals, something to eat over the winter time. So one thing I sort of encourage is that if you're going to take any holly from nature, or any of the, with any of the berries for over the Christmas period, make sure you leave some, because it is doing a job. It is feeding mammals, will come and eat the young shoots. So these sort of young parts, because they are soft, will be eaten by mammals, but the berries will be eaten by mammals such as foxes and also birds. Now the interesting thing about holly is that you can see here on this leaf, same part of the plant, so I'm still on the same plant. This is holly, but it's soft here and it's just getting a couple of spikes. Now holly will get spikes once it has been eaten. So once something has started to bite the holly, then it will actually start to put out these spikes to protect itself. But before it's actually had any sort of herbivory, the edges will actually be rounded like this, which I just think is fascinating. So you can tell that this holly, it's massive. This is a whole holly tree, but you can tell that this does get eaten because it has got its spikes out. We have a lovely plant here that is commonly confused with the hawthorn that we saw earlier. So let's take a little look at its identifying features. So the leaves comes from the stem, has this long leaf, and it has these leaflets. In opposites again, the same as the hogweed, but these leaves are quite feathery. They're really quite soft. The edges are toothed, but it's soft, and it's just very feathery looking. It's very sort of thin. It's very, you can just imagine it just dancing in the breeze. It's a very sort of thin, feathery sort of leaf. The stem is slightly furry, but not hairy like with the hogweed. And if you come up to the plants now, generally this will flower first, but it produces these lovely flower heads. Now this is getting late in the seasons, which is why there's not very many flower heads left on it. So you can see these flower heads here, like an umbrella of small white flowers, the same as the hogweed, tiny little white flowers, and it produces lots of them on these like little globe-like heads. So it'll have, if we sort of look over here, it'll have like globe-like heads on the top. So this is cow parsley. Now right next to it we actually do have a hogweed, so I can show you the difference. So the hogweed leaf, so again it sort of starts from the stem, comes out, has these opposites, deeply divided leaf, and you can see that all of the parts are quite big in comparison to the very small cow parsley. So the hogweed leaf itself is quite large, it's very, very hairy. You can see it has hairs all the way up, and it produces, this one's actually in flower now, it produces this umbrella of flowers. So you can see why it would be easily confused. It has these parts, these flower heads that are very similar to a cow parsley flower head. The difference with hogweed is it tends to produce this flat, a sort of a flat flower head. So this one is not in great condition. I've seen these much better where this just looks like one huge white flower head, and it looks like a landing pad. So it's like butterflies and insects can just sort of land on it and feed. So it looks like a flat landing pad. Whereas with the cow parsley, it has these globes of lots of little flower heads all the way around. So that's hogweed and cow parsley, and that's how you can tell the difference. So leaf would be first. The leaves are very different. The flower heads are similar, but you tend to find cow parsley will flower first and then hogweed will flower second. So hogweed is later in the year, but this one is cow parsley. We are in, look, we have a late blooming bluebell here. So this is a bluebell. Little fly net, sorry. Get the little fly away. See these beautiful flower heads. Looks like little bells. All curling at the edges now. It has a very thin stem. So the stem is quite sort of waxy feeling. Very, very thin. Really bends over with the weight of its flower heads. Very few sort of flower heads as well. Now this is the English bluebell. This is our native species. The leaves are quite thin and just grass-like. It just looks like grass. This thin stem drooping over heavily with few flower heads. So the flower heads will tend to be on one side. So you can see the stem here on the back, and the flower heads are all on the underside. So it has very, very few flower heads on it. And that's how you can identify it as the English variety, as opposed to the Spanish. The Spanish is a horticultural variety. It is invasive now in this country, so we have it in the country, but it is invasive, and it has taken over from our native species. So this is again another ancient woodland indicator species. If you find the English one, the Spanish one, like I say, is invasive, but it's much prettier. People tend to prefer it in their gardens. It has a full flower head, lots and lots and lots of bells, beautiful rich blue purple colour with a thicker stem, and the leaves of the Spanish is also much thicker. I do have some video of a Spanish bluebell, so I'm going to put that up now so you can see the difference. Bluebells, and you can see a sort of larger sort of stem, lots of flower heads, and the leaves for the bluebells are these lovely thick leaves. Now this is actually an invasive species. This is the Spanish bluebell. So English is pretty sorry for itself, very sort of thin, and the Spanish is much thicker. So this is an English bluebell. Beautiful. One thing I wanted to point out while we're here are these beautiful seed heads. So you can see they're quite, what shape? Triangular-ish sort of shape, with this point on top. Globular, going all the way up a fine stem. These are bluebell seeds, seed pods. So these will pop open and the seeds will come out. So these are from the English bluebell. So if you see these, then you know you've had English bluebells in the area. We have one of my favourite groups of plants down here right now, and it's this. So this is a type of fern. So there are lots of different types of ferns, and I want to show you how to identify them. So important features, this one, lots of leaves are coming out of this one area. This central part on a fern is called the rachis, and how many times it divides can help you to identify which type of fern you have. So this whole thing is one leaf, and some of them get absolutely enormous. So a rachis is a leaf, and each one of these are the leaflets. So this is divided twice, so it comes off from the main rachis and then it comes off from another stem. So this is divided twice. Each of the leaflets, you can see, are all sort of separate on here. So sometimes that will be solid. This one is all sort of separated. The rachis, this central part, has this brown sort of scaling at the bottom, but it doesn't go all the way up. This is a male fern. One thing I want to show you, the reason I love these, look on the underside at these beautiful circles. You can see that they're not always exactly lined up, so they're a bit sort of messy. They're not ordered very well. That's another way that you can tell this is the male fern from the lady fern. Now these are the sori or sori. Now these parts here are what produce the spores, and those spores are what make more fern plants. So this does not produce flowers, it's not pollinated, so it's wind distributed. So it's wind distributed spores from the underside, which for me, it just makes me think of ancient plants that dinosaurs would have been around. So this is the male fern, and that is how they reproduce. We have a very small tree here, a little baby tree. You can see it's growing out from behind this massive oak. So this is a huge oak tree. It's got some holly growing around it also. But this is beautiful. So we have, this is one leaf, and these are leaflets. So one leaf coming from the stem. Sorry, I'm disturbing spiders' webs, poor spiders' houses. And it's got opposite pairs of these toothed edged leaflets. They go all the way to the end. Now this is a rowan tree, a beautiful tree. They can get quite large. It's not a massive tree, it's not like the oak tree. Lovely, lovely tree. It puts out amazing flower heads, which are pollinated, and then so many berries. This produces bright red berries that just feeds birds for absolutely ages. This is a baby version, so it's got some growing to do yet, and I fear if we weren't to cut back some of this holly, it might not make it. But it's a lovely rowan tree. So one leaf, lots of toothed edge leaflets. So there's many. You can see there's many of these paired leaflets all the way to the edge. The toothed edge gives it away, and then once it flowers you'll see it, and then it produces lots of berries. So this is a rowan tree. Okay, and we have another tree, another lovely tall tree. So let's look at the leaves. So the leaves on this tree are opposite. So we can see that you've got these stems. So you've got the main branch and then the stems that come off, and you have these lovely leaves. So they're in opposites, so they're opposite each other all the way up the stem. Okay, so that's one of our identifying features. The leaf itself, if we can get one where we can actually see it, here we go, here we are. So it has this deep divide, it's quite lobed, so it's nice and rounded and lobed. It has this this shape, and the number of lobes is significant. The lobes all terminate in a round edge. The colour, you can see it's quite red. the bark as well is quite sort of, I know that the lighting isn't great, sort of orangey red, so it's sort of reddish in colour. So this is a field maple. This is a field maple tree. And we can tell that by the colour, the leaf orientation, and these lovely lobed, soft, round-edged leaves. So this is a field maple. We have another lovely tree here, which is growing next to the field maple. And the leaves look like this. So this branch is weighing down quite heavily. This woodland is just left to get on with it, really. It isn't managed in any way. So all of the footpaths around here are all just mud footpaths. And as it's rained quite a lot here, the paths are quite difficult at the minute. So let's get into identification. Why do we know this is an elder? So the leaves are in opposites again. And this whole thing is one leaf, remember? And these are the leaflets. So the leaves on this, not to be confused with the rowan, which has many leaflets, but it does have this toothed edge. So it has a lovely toothed edge, a long point like the hazel, but there are many leaflets, not one leaf on the branch. So we know it's not a hazel, despite having this long point and a toothed edge, because it has leaflets. The stems are green on the new growth and a grey colour on old growth. Now this elder will have between 5 and 7 leaflets. So this one has 5. So they come up in pairs, and then we always have an odd one at the end. So sometimes I'll have more, sometimes I'll have less. To be honest, sometimes they can even have more than 7, but generally the average is between 5 and 7 leaflets on a stem. The stem feels like it's triangular almost. You can sort of see this little ridge here. And so the back has got the sort of the pointed version of that. Now this will produce lovely big white flower heads, which can be used to make wines and champagne and things. And then once the flowers have gone, it will produce loads of berries. And the berries, once they go to a purple colour, so they start off green and go red and then purple. Once the berries go to a purple colour, you can pick them and you can use them as medicine. You cannot eat raw berries, that's important for me to say. So you can't just eat them raw. You do need to cook them, but people have made cough syrups and throat syrups for when you've got a cold or anything like that, you know, a bit of a tickly throat, out of elderberries. So you cook them down with some sugar to make a syrup, and you just take a little teaspoon. So this is an elder. So the leaves as well are quite wide, because hopefully later on I want to show you another tree that this can be easily confused with, and that's the ash tree. This is the elder, so wide leaflets, and there's fewer in number, so there's like 5 to 7, sometimes more. This is elder. Okay, so I'd like to introduce you to a really small flower that's down here. Easily missed, but absolutely one of my favourites. And it's this beautiful thing here. It has these beautiful petals, so 4 petals, always in this sort of shape. So the top petal is pointed and the bottom ones are rounded on the edge. It's a purpley blue colour with veins, and it always has these 2 parts sticking out. Now this is a Germander speedwell. It's a delicate little flower. You can see it's on fine stems, slightly furry, and this is the Germander speedwell. Now there are a few different types of speedwell, but I always think they can be so easily missed by people as you're just sort of walking through and you don't notice these things. But once you start looking for UK wildflowers, you can't miss them. They're absolutely beautiful. And you'll often see them like this. Once you see them, you sort of spot them everywhere through the grass. And even though they're so small and delicate, they seem to just take over. They're lovely. This lovely pink flower, you can see the stem and the flower heads are quite furry. And the flower heads are really vibrant. They're so pretty. Now those ones are a little bit too far for me to reach through, so there's one down here. Now the petals are deeply divided, so you can see they're almost like this long heart shape where it has this divide in the middle. So this is not two separate petals, this is one petal with a deep divide in it, which is one of the identifying features. This is called red campion. So although it's pink and sort of quite vibrant hot pink, it is called red campion. It has this fur along the stem, these beautiful flower heads that are sort of standing on a long sort of stem, and the leaves are quite furry again as well, and also in opposites all the way down this stem. So this is red campion. A flower here that you've probably seen is this brown flower head. The stem is square, so as you roll it between your fingers you can sort of feel the ridges on the stem. It has these little flower heads that sort of stick out. This is called ribwort plantain. Now if we go follow the stem all the way down, generally has quite a large stem. The leaves are these things. So the lanceolate in shape, this long sort of shape here, looking like a lance, quite sort of furry feeling. You can see there is some hairs along the leaf. So you'll spot the leaves first. Sometimes these can be quite thick. This one is quite thin when the grass stops getting in the way and the cow parsley. So it has these lovely sort of ripples in the leaf, as you can sort of see there. It's sort of rippled, and they always sort of look like that. And then it produces this long stem terminating in one beautiful sort of head at the top. So that is ribwort plantain. This plantain here, these sort of fluffy sort of leaves, deeply divided, slightly toothed on one edge, and they grow in these great bundles, and you'll see them coming out of the ground first of all as just a ring of these sort of feathery, quite light green coloured leaves. You can't see, I'm sort of casting a shadow here, but these are quite light green in comparison to the darker green around it of the grass. Now this is ragwort. So ragwort is a poisonous plant, but it is great for producing the cinnabar moth. So I'll put up a picture now of the cinnabar moth, and what you'll notice on here is this will be absolutely covered in yellow and black stripy caterpillars, absolutely covered in them, and those are the caterpillars for the cinnabar moth, and they're always on ragwort. This is their sort of plant of choice. So this is a ragwort. These lovely light green coloured leaves belong to an edible plant. Produces these flower heads and then these long seed pods. It has 4 white flowers. So it has these 4 white petals, small white petals on a thin stem. Now these can get quite tall, this is quite a short version, but the leaves are light green, this sort of sharp toothed edge. My phone's not focusing very well. Now usually when it matures you'll see leaves that look like this, they look like hearts. Now this is called garlic mustard, and it's supposed to taste like garlic mustard apparently. I have not eaten it myself, but if you were foraging, this would be one that would be quite nice. This lovely white flower here has again these deeply divided petals. So this is not 10 petals but 5, and they are deeply divided. So it has 5 white petals, deeply divided, and you can see the yellow sort of, or the green and yellow centres. It has really thin stems for such a large flower head. The stems are really very thin. The leaves are these really thin grass-like leaves, again lanceolate in shape, in opposites. Now this is called greater stitchwort. Beautiful flower. It's really quite striking, and you generally see it in large areas. So you can see the flowers sort of going over now. It's a little bit late in the year for them. So these are some of our last nice food for our pollinators. This is greater stitchwort, beautiful flower, and one that once you see it, you can't not notice it. Grows in lots of different places, along verges, in sort of areas where there's maybe a bit of overgrowth. You'll generally see greater stitchwort. This beautiful big tree here is one that actually, when it's small and young, could be mistaken for field maple or any of the maples. But the leaves, once it gets big and mature like this, it is absolutely huge. This is a huge leaf, but you can see why it would be mistaken. So it has these lobes, and it's the same number of lobes as with the maples. The stems are red, and they are in opposites, exactly the same as with the field maple that we saw earlier. But this is a sycamore, so it's much bigger. You can see it's significantly larger. The leaves are also not rounded, so if we look at the edge, they have toothed edges, not a nice sort of soft round edge. So the toothed edge will give it away, the size will generally give it away, and it terminates in these points. So where with field maple, it has this lovely sort of rounded end, sycamore will terminate in points. And we know it's not hazel because it's not furry, so there's no fur on this at all. It feels quite waxy, normal sort of leaf-like. And even though it's one leaf on a stem, it is lobed. So it's not hazel, even though the end is pointed. It's not furry, and it has these lobes. And it's not field maple because it has toothed edges, not round edges. So this is a sycamore. This will be a sycamore tree. This beautiful, vibrant plant that we have here is commonly mistaken for forget-me-nots. Now this is not a forget-me-not. It's green alkanet. So let's show you how we can tell the difference. So this is very, very hairy, and the hairs are quite sort of spiky feeling. It isn't painful or anything, but you can see it sort of means business. It has some spikes on it. It's very, very, very furry. The flowers are similar to forget-me-not flowers. It has these beautiful 5 petals. They're this lovely deep blue colour, and it has this bright white centre. Now with a forget-me-not, it will terminate in lots of small flower heads that will be blue, but the centre will be yellow unless it's been pollinated, and then it will go to a pale yellow or sometimes a white, or like a creamy white colour. This one is always white in the middle, so you can see on all of them the middle is white. Now with a forget-me-not, you'll generally see some are yellow and some are still white. It has these thicker short lancelet, heart-shaped, almost like leaves. The fur definitely gives it away, so it's very, very furry with these long spikes that sort of stick off the end, and it grows in great huge clumps like this. It is absolutely beautiful. It's very, very striking to see. But this one is green alkanet and not a forget-me-not. Plant that we have here, some of you might recognise, some might not. So they all come from roughly the same sort of area and radiate outwards. Long lancelet shaped leaves, very waxy feeling, and it's all sort of bubbly like, very textured. It's a very, very textured surface. Feels very, very thick. The underside is almost the same colour as the surface, so there's not a significant difference there. Now this is a dock leaf, so it generally has these parts to it here. where the leaf sort of curls round and goes up like this and produces one long leaf. So it's one long leaf, not divided into leaflets or anything, one huge long leaf. And this is a dock leaf. So if you're ever stung by stinging nettles, this is what you want to look for. This is what is going to help you to get rid of that itch and that sting from the stinging nettle. So these are dock leaves. Great medicinal plant. This tree that we have here, so its branches are all here and it goes all the way up. It's very, very big. It's very, very beautiful. But this can be mistaken for rowan and elder, and it is neither of those. So this is an ash tree. So let's take a look. You can see that the stems are alternate slightly, so it's slightly, one slightly below the other. It has these long leaves that have many leaflets, similar to the rowan. So the first part are in these opposite pairs, and then you have one at the end. So it usually has between 7 and 9, but it can have more than that. The edges are not as toothed, as you can see, as the rowan. It has a slight tooth, but it all sort of goes towards the point in the middle. Now, one of the best ways to identify this as an ash, when it's not sticking to me, is if we look for some of the buds. Now, this is quite a tangled mess, but here we go. When we go in here, you can see this bud here, and you can see this little part here is quite dark in colour, so it's almost black. Now, all of the branches on this ash will terminate with these black, very, very dark brown, almost black buds. And so that one's come loose, I'm going to pull it away. So these buds help you to identify this as an ash. So it's the only one that has these dark buds, almost like it's sort of been dipped in charcoal or something. And that makes this the ash tree. So it can be confused with rowan and elder. So it doesn't produce the same flowers or seeds or berries or anything like that as the other two. But you can see why it'd be confused. It has many little leaflets like the rowan, but it isn't as divided. The leaves are narrower, so the elder can have the same number, but the leaves are generally thicker. These are quite thin, and they always are very sort of thin on the ash tree. And then if you see the dark buds, then that confirms that you have an ash over a rowan or an elder. Beautiful, and I hope that sort of helps to identify those apart. We have a plant down here that I have a fond memory of as a child. So this is the plant. And so you might be thinking to yourself, stinging nettle. Okay, so it has the toothed edge, the single leaf, and it is furry, slightly furry. Okay, but this one produces these sorts of flowers, almost orchid-like sort of flowers. Now this doesn't sting at all. This is a dead nettle. So the stem itself, it sort of feels, I can't even say hairy, almost like it's got a bit of texture to it, but it doesn't sting at all. So this is a dead nettle, and the dead nettles are usually named from the colour of the flower. So this one is the white dead nettle. Now here we have a stinging nettle. So you can see the stem is more furry. There is fur coming up the stem of the leaf and then onto the leaf, and it has that same sort of toothed edge. So this is trying to look like a stinging nettle, but it isn't a stinging nettle. This is a dead nettle. And I have a memory of my dad when I was a child grabbing hold of this to say that he had superpowers and didn't feel stinging nettles, but it's actually because it was a dead nettle and not a stinging nettle. And I didn't find that out for an embarrassingly long amount of time. But this is a dead nettle, so you can touch it, it's absolutely fine, it's lovely and soft, it's beautiful, and the flowers are incredible. Down here I wanted to show you the forget-me-nots. So earlier on we saw the green alkanet plant, which is commonly mistaken for this, which is the forget-me-not. Now the forget-me-not flower is smaller, it's a lighter colour, although they can be quite bright blue, So some of these are quite bright, but you can see here what I was referring to. So generally they have this bright yellow centre, this lovely bright yellow centre. And when they've been pollinated, they go this sort of pale yellow, sort of creamy colour. But you'll generally always find some that are bright yellow and some that are this sort of pale white greeny colour. It's a smaller plant. It has this delicate stem that the flower heads come from, and you can see where it produces flower heads all the way up to terminate at the top. So it's a smaller plant. The leaves are down here, these lancelet shaped leaves. This is the leaf. So it's smaller and terminates in flower heads at the top, unlike the alkanet, as you can sort of see there. The flower head is much smaller and it's this bright yellow middle that you're looking for. Beautiful. But this is the forget-me-not. We have some more ferns here. Now these are actually one of my favourite ferns. So let's see how we can identify them. So the ferns, if I come down, standing on a plant, it has a single stem that reaches up, so they're not all coming out the same place. You can sort of see that there's some space between them. They don't all come out the same space like on the male fern we saw earlier. They are tall. So these aren't as tall as they can get. So these get much taller than me. So I'm 5'2". This one is about as tall as me, but they will get much taller. So it has this one really tall stem. They stand very, very tall. It has the leaves that come off. And you can see. Now this one is divided. So you have the main stem, it comes off, comes out, and then it comes off again, so it's 3 times. The leaves look similar to the male fern, so it has these little lobed parts, and then in one long sort of leaf at the end, or leaflet at the end. So these are all the leaflets of this fern. Now these are very young, so they're only just, you can see how they all sort of unfurl. It's pretty cool looking how they unfurl. So these are all very young, and actually these have grown really quickly. I was here not that long ago and these were not here. So these are a very, very quick growing fern. I don't think it's going to have any sora yet. It does not, but it will have the sora on it once it's matured. So it produces the spores along the bottom, and again distribute via wind, exactly the same as the other, but this one is called bracken. So this is bracken, and they tend to take over large areas. So you can see this whole area as sort of as far back as we can see into there, and as far back as over there. This is just bracken, and this will get really very, very thick. At the moment we can see some leaf litter between. We will not be able to see that in a few weeks time if we were to come back here, but this one is bracken. It comes one long stem, very, very tall, coming from one central point. The leaf that comes off is very large. Beautiful. Bracken. So we're reaching the end of the woodland now. I hope you found that interesting. I hope going around and looking at some of the plants you found that interesting. Why do you want to know about them? Why do you want to be able to identify them? 1, I think it's pretty cool. 2, you can get your kids involved. 3, if you were foraging for food, you know what to look out for. You know, you would know the difference between a cow parsley, for example, and a poison hemlock. So being able to identify these things and find these plants for yourself can be really beneficial to you for many different reasons. I come out with the kids, we go through the woods, and I get them to find certain plant species as we're going. It gives them something to do and keeps them motivated on long walks. But also, if you were looking to get any sort of career in ecology or conservation, you need to be able to identify the wildlife for the area that you live in. So if you're in the UK and you want to get into conservation, one thing that you will have to do is do a test to show how many species in the UK you can identify. So I hope this has helped you, just some little way to be able to identify some cool UK species, and I hope you found it interesting. So the rain is just starting now, so we're going to get out of the woods and head home. But thank you so much for joining me. Like I say, really hope you found this interesting. Let me know in the comments, were there any plant species there that you didn't know before that you know now? Yeah, or anything else that you would, any of the locations you'd want me to go to and identify things for you, let me know. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Have an awesome day. Bye.